we create it step by step, building bridges, not just networks on the internet. Got questions? Grab a chair. Office hours, keep it real in here. When you come downtown today, LinkedIn, pursue networking. Let your voice be heard. Say what you mean. Grow your brand. Chase that dream. Chase that dream. Chase that dream. Not just sales or trends we chase. We're here for a purpose, power and grace. Every hustle has a heartbeat, every post a spark, but connection is the light that cuts the dark. Oh, Shane drops gems that'll shift your view. Call and ask the questions that bring out truth. Got questions? Grab a chair. Office hours, keep it real in here. When you come downtown today, LinkedIn, pursue networking. Let your voice be heard. Say what you mean. Grow your brand. Chase that dream. Chase that dream. Clock in, dreams up. Let the questions roll. Got a story, got a vision, got a burning goal. We don't fake it, we create it step by step, building bridges, not just networks on the internet. Got questions? Grab a chair. Office hours, keep it real in
Yo,
here.
yo, yo. What's up?
Hey, Colin. Oh my gosh, so many things happening. So many things, but I'm glad to be back here with you.
Yeah, what's new?
Hours. So bittersweet news. There's been a tragedy in the family, and unfortunately, we lost somebody. We're going through it. Families banding together, and we're doing better now. On the brighter side, I'll be traveling, so I'll be seeing my other side of family in the States, and they happen to be like 30 minutes away from you. All right. So guess what? I can't come like 30 minutes, away from Colin and not see Colin in the flesh. Is he short? Is he tall? Is he as good looking in person as he is on camera? All these questions, man.
I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to meet you. I've never you don't always, I guess tragedy brings people together at the end of the day, right? Well, look, Atlanta is excited to have you. We have some fun. We'll figure out some fun activities to do. It'll be nice to have the same questions about you. I'm guessing you're tall.
I'm 5'9.5", 10.
Okay.
What about you?
Okay. I'm 5'9". So
5'9".
I wouldn't classify
Oh,
myself as
yeah.
tall, but I'm like normal size.
Yeah, if I cut my hair, we're on the same level.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
All
cool.
right. You have a big energy. I kind of assumed that you were going to be, well, I was going to say like 6 feet. So not like
Yeah,
so far.
I'll take it.
Yeah. I'm excited to see you. We'll figure out some things. I'm excited to kind of maybe even introduce you to some people, see if I can introduce you. I haven't told my co-founder you're coming, but like once everything's squared away, we'll kind of figure out like what the exact dates are and how I could shuttle you around and take full advantage of the opportunity. Well, looking forward to that. I'm also excited to kind of continue on our curriculum journey. We have a big, I feel like day to day, because we've been talking so much about so much about leading up to today, which is trying to figure out like how do you actually make money off of LinkedIn? That's kind of the topic of conversation. So I'm excited to dive in. What anything else on your mind before we dive in?
My gosh, this has been on my mind since the very beginning. When do we get to the money? That's been my question, right? But I learned from you, Colin, never skip consideration. All right, awareness, consideration, then conversion. All right.
Yeah.
So we've waited long enough. We've had the discussions. We've had the serious conversations, talking, replied. Now it's time to drop some offers and some deals.
Yeah. Everything is the way I kind of think of it is a progression. So, it's the awareness and the consideration set you up for the conversion. That's the way that I'm seeing it, is like you're framing and diagnosing to get to a place where now you're ready and feeling confident to get the conversion. But at the same time, you have to be nimble enough to not necessarily get what you want out of it, but what's best for the context of the situation, which is what we're going to dive into a little bit more today. But yeah, look, we're all here at the end of the day to try to get clients and make money and close deals. So at a certain point, you got to get to the conversion. You got to be able to have confidence in how you're presenting yourself, what you're asking for, how do you collect money to actually close the loop on, either close the loop on the networking and really transition towards sales. So that's kind of the way I see it, is like, this is the culmination of the networking, and we're really talking about converting a sale. So cool. Any questions before we get started?
Nope. I'm excited to see what you have prepared.
Let's do it. All right. So last time we went over the discovery call. The discovery call is an opportunity to do diagnostics and try to figure out what makes sense, or if it makes sense to move forward. But let's say that it does make sense. You had mentioned last time that how we would kind of wrap things up, try to land on the calendar, a strategy session. And so this is what I like to call like a 45-minute meeting. It can be an hour, but I like to keep it at 45. That way, if it goes over, you have an extra 15 minutes kind of blocked in to hopefully try to maybe overcome objections or try to figure out what the next steps are. But, in a perfect world, it would be about 45 minutes. And the goal here is to really pitch the right offer the right way. And that's kind of the key thing here, is we got a lot of diagnostic information from the DMs, the discovery call, and now it's time to shine. How do you connect, understand, and get a commitment? That's kind of what we're going to go over now. So let's start with the purpose of a strategy call. What is a strategy call? A strategy call isn't a pressure pitch. It's a decision-making moment. What does that mean? Well, it means that you're here to clarify goals, understand pain, co-create the best next step, position yourself as a strategic guide, present an offer that matches where they are, and create a clear path forward. So it's still in the format of a progression. You're trying to progress along with a commitment. So the key thing here is you're not forcing the decision, you're helping them make the right one. So, the way that I think about sales is it's all about helping people make a decision. It's not about pressure pitching them to force feed the decision that you want. It's to kind of help work through the right strategy to help them get unstuck. Now, you had enough diagnostic information to be able to use this moment as your opportunity to help unstuck them. So let me pause before we get into maybe some of the mistakes to avoid. Is how do you think of strategy sessions? Like, where's your mind at, as for maybe the audience? What do you think about when you're going into these meetings? Like, what's the frame? What are you trying to achieve? What do you think the purpose of the call is?
Feed me information. Feed me. I need to know more about you, the prospect, the lead. I need to know, kind of need to know if you're a nice person as well. Or if this all works out, if you're gonna be a pain to work with, or if you're gonna be a joy. If you're gonna be a great client that I enjoy working with. But I need information. So I typically go in with a Google Docs spreadsheet, Google Docs, and I'm ready to just take notes live, sharing screen, so I can understand more about you. And I'll do my research as well. But I want you to tell me about who you are, your background, what your business is, what you sell, what makes the most money for you, and what makes the quickest money for you.
But wouldn't you have already known that wouldn't those be the questions you asked in the discovery call?
in the discovery call, the thing is, yeah, you're right. But
So
I'm not very organized. That's probably yeah, that's probably it. I'm not very organized, so I'll do I'll try to get as much as I can in the first call, which is not necessarily 15 minutes. Sometimes the first call is half an hour or even 45 minutes. Then the second call is that's where I get into the weeds more, because it's not just about like who you are, who your target audience is anymore. It's about like what makes the quickest money for you and what makes the most money. Those two things. And then what are the pain points? Because why I ask that is because this is where we actually start doing work. Like even before like there's a contract signed, I'm trying to start to add value, meaningful value of something substantial that they can apply, like or they can use. So I'm actually starting work in the second call. You all right?
yeah,
But
so,
yes,
so, so I agree with that, but I think it's really important to be able to go into these calls, just my opinion, with a more clear understanding of what you're pitching and what that work looks like. Because if you come in too open ended, there's no guarantee that you're going to leave with what you want. And I think that that to me is kind of the frame that is important to go into these calls. You have to understand like what you're trying to get out of it, because the discovery call you don't know. You're right. I go in blind, like we went over last
okay.
time. I'm very open ended because I don't really know at that point the diagnostics. I don't know where they're at in their business. I don't know what makes them the most money, what they're looking for. But I'm going into this call with a better understanding of what the answers those are. I might have not have all the answers. You're right, and I might want to pull on some of those strings a little bit further. But I do have some information, so it's important to be able to close a deal, to be able to be somewhat in control of what it is that you're offering. Like, what is the path forward? Not saying that it has to be that, but we want to have. I'm trying to go in as the leader. That's the way I think about these strategy calls. Is we're going to do work. I agree. This is the time to do work, but I want you to agree with the work that I think we need to do. Is kind of the framing of the way that I'm kind of approaching this. But we'll get into that a little bit more of like how do you kind of structure that. So first of all, it's always important I think to start with the mistakes to avoid. And these are coming from the mistakes that I made when I was first starting. Is you don't want to climb too high too fast. We've talked about this in the past. I think that sometimes when I started, I wanted to come in with my best offer, right? I could give you a year contract, 6-month contract, 3-month contract. I want commitment. But what I found is when I did that, especially if it was a stranger, there was no like referral aspect of it. If you pitch too high of a retainer too early, it kills the momentum. So even if they're interested going into the call, you start triggering the I need to think about it stage, because now you're asking for a big commitment, which means that you're not progressing. At that point, it's kind of a retraction, right? Not saying that you can't continue the progression, but if the point of the call is to get the progression, to continue to climbing the ladder, you want to make sure that you're not jumping too high. And we'll talk about this a little bit more about how I frame, how I think about that. But it's important to make sure that you want to climb up and not fall off. So the way that I think about it is I'm trying to climb one rung at a time. So I sometimes start with a high trust, low friction offer. We call it introductory offers, which we'll get into. I'm always trying to build momentum, and then I want to present long-term path, maybe even in this meeting. But thinking about maybe that's not the goal for today. I'm not necessarily trying to get that 6-month contract unless I feel like it's worthwhile. So remember, sales is a value ladder. So if you reach too high too fast, people fall off. And this is why, going based off of what you just said, and again, I've made those mistakes as well, is it's important to kind of come in with what you think is the best offer. Because if you don't know what the best offer is and you start working and you start kind of like helping them, you might both leave somewhat confused without like a true commitment to tackling a specific problem in a way that you agree, because they're looking for you to be the leader.
Not being specific enough. I'm guilty, and it's to my detriment of not being more assertive in some of these calls. the thing is, I don't want to scare them away by like suggesting to aggressively or the path they should take, right? I kind of want to leave it open ended just in case it doesn't work out and they're like, it's not entirely my fault. Right. That's probably not the right way to think about this. But
I love the empathy that you're bringing to the table, and I think that it shows that you're a really good person. But I think that there's ways that we'll talk about, like how do you structure offers in a way that makes them feel like they're not boxed in, but at the same time allow you to get a commitment, because you do need a commitment, especially if you're building a business. Your time is valuable, their time is valuable. And I've made this mistake too, where it's like you don't want the commitment to just be another meeting, to kind of have another working session. I've done that in the past too. And then you find that what winds up happening is they might take advantage of you, or they might not really know they've spent too much time with you that they're kind of ready to move on.
Funny you said that, Colin. I remember about 3 or 4 weeks ago, you asked me a question, have I ever not been paid for work? And I said, no,
Yeah.
they always pay eventually. Maybe not in a time. Colin, in Jamaica, we would say, it's not offensive, but when somebody like says something like not so, great, like not so ideal, and it actually happens to you, they say you have a goat mouth. Like man, goat mouth, right?
Okay.
So guess what happened to me?
Someone didn't pay you.
$200. $200, campaign running, he's getting leads, right? And I'm like, where's the where is the funded milestone on Upwork? Nothing. And I'm DMing, okay, all right, yeah, not, when I'm able to, whatever. This has been over a month. I'm like, it makes, So thanks, Colin.
Okay. I've been there. I made that mistake. That's why it's really important that you come into these strategy sessions with confidence and understanding how you structure your offers and what your process is. It's really important because it's not your fault. I've been there too. You have to live and learn that you need a commitment until you progress, right? You have an offer. You think that the offer is the right offer. You get the commitment that they want the offer, and then you move forward. So the mechanics to make sure you get the commitment is everything about this call. That's why your goal is not to just do work. It is a strategy session. So there is work that you can do. But the way that I think about it is the work is really about helping them make a decision. Talking out what the process is, not the campaign, because that's a separate meeting. That's a kickoff of after a post commitment. You got to make sure that they want this before it makes sense to move forward. Cool.
Yeah.
So, live and learn. So let's start this with prep before the call. You got to set yourself up to win. The discovery call, I kind of mentioned less prep. You want to go in. I've learned this our way. You could over prep for that, and then you're not nimble enough to actually do active listening to hear like what do they actually want, and are your assumptions correct? Can't over prepare. But if you did well in the discovery call, you should have some anchoring of who they are, what their business is, all those questions you asked at the beginning. You should know that. If you did, you should have asked that in the discovery call. What's your business model? Where do you make money? Where's your pain? Are all the decision makers there? But let's say, you didn't do great in the discovery call, which happens as well. You walk out of the meeting and think, I should have asked this. I should have asked this. Or you did research now that they said that, and you realize, I don't really know about this or that. That's where this prep comes in. You have to set yourself up to win. You have to kind of be organized to come in with challenging your assumptions. So I call it like strategic prep equals confident delivery. You should now be able to be in a position to lead this meeting. Discovery call, remember I said the first 15 minutes, you're trying to ask questions. I'm not trying to lead the meeting. I'm trying to give you a space to share. But now with the strategy call, this is my time to shine. I'm here to try to help you. So because you've showed up now, I need to act and lead. So the things that I'm doing to prep, one, I'm trying to review what they've seen, right? At the end of the call last week, you had mentioned maybe you share them office hours, you share them PDF. So you want to kind of take inventory of where did this lead come from and what do I think that they've seen of me? How did that conversation go? How much did I get out beforehand? Did they ask me about my offers? Do they have any context into what do I do? Did they interact with some of my posts that I can at least assume that they kind of have an understanding of who do I help? Did I give them case studies? Did they come in through a referral that they know that I have a service business? What do they see? And that's really important to kind of understand so you can meet them where they're at, because now you don't necessarily need to overshare, or you need to, potentially share that information if they've never asked. If they're showing up again and you haven't really presented your business, you might need to present your business in the beginning of the meeting. You want to be nimble enough, because if they already know what your business is, that's a waste of time. So take stock of, you have to understand what have they seen. Then while you're doing that, you probably want to anticipate objections. Go based off your gut. What do you think the objections are going to be? Do you think that they don't have money? Do you think that they don't have bandwidth? What are the objections that you can kind of foresee? Thoughts?
Yeah, I've just always gone in, I'm not thinking about objections at all, right? Maybe if I don't think about them, they won't pop up. But that's definitely not the case.
That's definitely not
I've
the case.
never really prepared myself for objections. I just kind of handle them as they go along. But it would be wise for me to maybe put down a list of frequently asked questions, frequent objections as well, and have like a really good response.
Absolutely. And the objections, to be honest, there's a finite amount of objections. I'm actually thinking we might do another session on just objection handling, because there's not that many objections. But what I would say is you want, and to be honest, they'll kind of save this for a different session, but the best way to handle objections is to be able to anticipate them, right? Because if you can anticipate it, you can reframe the objection. And oftentimes I found that the objection that they say is not actually the objection, right? They might say it's budget, but then when you dive deeper, you realize that no, it's actually more trust. Like they don't trust you, which is a different objection than budget. Because, if they're saying, well, I don't have the budget, and you're saying, well, like, if we drive you leads, wouldn't you make more money?
Yeah. And then they switch it up and say, well, no, not really.
And you ask your questions and you can reframe it. You can kind of get a little bit deeper to realize, oh, if you made more money, then that is not a money problem. You just don't know if this is going to work. The objection is not that, it's this. So let's pause objection handling. But my point in prep is you kind of want to start reading the business. What do you think, based off of what they spoke in the discovery call, what do you think the objection is going to be? Do you think it seems like they have a money problem or a trust problem or a decision-making problem? Like maybe they're not the actual decision maker. They got to have a committee. Maybe they were just window shopping, right? They're not. Yeah, they were just kind of explore information, and they're still exploring information. So you think that their objection is going to be level of urgency? Like they don't really care that much right now. You can start anticipating that. The reason that it's important, because it'll probably frame what you talk about. If you're leading the meeting, you might want to get ahead of that by, talking about how fast you're going to do things, or structuring your offer in a different way to kind of, if you think that they're not going to trust you, for example, you definitely probably don't want to pitch a 6-month retainer versus somebody that came in through a referral that says, hey, I met Billy. Billy says you do a great job. I want what Billy's got. Right? That's not a trust thing. That's like more, it's a different objection. So you want to start anticipating that, because it's really going to help you prepare for what you think is the path forward. And then lastly, that leads to, you have to clarify what you're pitching. Like, what are you going into the meeting pitching? Because if you don't have that prepared, what you're going to do is just talking a lot, and you're going to walk away with an unclear path forward. And it's the most important thing to get a commitment is knowing what you're committing to. Right? But they can't know what they're committing to if you don't know what you're offering. If you don't have a clear pitch, they're not going to have a clear commitment. So it's like a reflection of your pitch is kind of the ease of the commitment. So, are you going to pitch an ongoing partnership? Are you going to pitch a 30-day sprint, some introductory offer? Like, what do you think is the best path forward? And if you kind of understand that, obviously you could be nimble, but you should have enough information to take your best guess and present yourself in the best light in this meeting to try to get the commitment and see, did you nail it? You could always, usually I have found that if you did diagnostics, you understand what you offer, you can always change it. It's like you're just kind of pitching something that makes sense, that makes it easy for them to say, yeah, let's do it. Let's progress. So prep before the call equals setting yourself up to win. So with that, I think the hardest thing that people have, like one of the challenges that people have to kind of grasp how to set this up, like what are they offering, which is kind of, I think, even what you said, what I hear is like, well, you don't necessarily have clarity on what you're offering. I like to think of this in two buckets. I either have ongoing engagement and introductory offers. Now, I want to pause and say that there's lots of different ways to do this. So there's no like one size fits all. Like obviously every business is a little bit different. If you're selling a product, it's different than if you're selling a service. So this is kind of you got to adapt this. But I like to say the way that I think about it, and I've had success doing this, is I usually have two buckets of offers. And within that, obviously there's nuance. But am I trying to get an ongoing engagement from this person? Or am I trying to progress using an introductory offer? I have two different types. And typically I find that one of them usually feels obvious, meaning if it came in through referral and there's already trust there, or they have I could tell like a legitimate business that they don't want to mess with an introductory offer. They want to like get progress as quickly as possible. Then let's go with the ongoing commitment.
Ongoing return,
let's give them what they want, which is results quickly, and let's dive in. But a lot of times that might not be the best case, especially when you're networking on LinkedIn and you haven't built trust yet. And also the reality of ongoing retainers, let's just say, is there's a lot of capital expenses associated with that. So you had just mentioned that your now cousin's helping you with some clients, right? That's capital expenses. Like in order to get other people to help you deliver service, you need ongoing commitments because you got to pay people. And the truth is, people not only understand that, they expect that. So, if it makes sense where they want results faster, it usually requires people and capital expenses. So you want to pitch ongoing retainers. Let's get this going quickly. But for people that are unclear, maybe you don't have all the answers to what they want, what they do, you might not want to pitch that because then it puts you in a position that maybe you're going too fast and they're not ready for that type of commitment. So I like to say, okay, well, how can I create some introductory offer that's an easy yes, low friction, value first entry point, something that we're building trust, because I assume that, you don't want me to pitch you a 90-day sprint, 6-month engagement. It seems, that's my guess. I haven't met your business partner as an example, right? You found out that there's a decision maker coming now to the meeting that you've never met. Well, I feel a little uncomfortable trying to now sell them on a 6-month engagement when they're
they weren't even in the discovery call.
Exactly. So, okay, well, then it's obvious I'm definitely not pitching that because I don't know if that person's a good fit. I don't know if they're going to be annoying, like you had mentioned, like as a client. So we're going to go with introductory offer.
Sure.
So the right offer depends on where they are, not what you want them to be, but like where they are at, what you think is the best fit that you feel confident in pitching and explaining why you think this is the best structured offer for this moment.
You're right. I had a sales call. Well, it started off with a complimentary masterminds LinkedIn sales support for like 2 weeks, and went well. And we're at this point now where she wants to work with me, on an ongoing basis, ongoing retainer. But her LinkedIn profile is far from ready for any kind of campaign, and so so her page is like starting from zero, goose egg. Now, if I had thought of creating an introductory offer back then I could probably have done done the prep work for her entire LinkedIn instead of giving her to do it as homework,
Exactly.
sending connections each day. I could have created an introductory offer
Yes.
that prepares for LinkedIn for
Yes.
campaigns like a month
Yes.
down the road. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm
Exactly.
just in retrospect, I think I
Yeah.
should have done that.
What you just described was how I started my business. This was the insight that I had where I realized that I could just sell people introductory offers of LinkedIn profile makeovers and get yeses, and then not be burdened by the ongoing campaigns aspect of it that people didn't necessarily know if they wanted. So I sold them what I thought that they wanted, which was an introductory offer of getting everything set up and deflecting that commitment until we're done. And then we had to work it. We built trust, and then we talked about what ongoing campaigns look like. And during that introductory offer, I got a lot more information. I got a lot more information to feel a lot more confident in how I was presenting the ongoing. So it was a value ladder. So exactly what you're saying. Let's talk about like how do you design a compelling introductory offer? Well, and one is making it easy to say yes. So I totally agree with what you just said. The main thing is you're not selling the whole thing, just the right first step. So in your case, you saw it. You don't want to sell the whole thing. You want to sell the first right step, the prep work. Exactly. That's the perfect introductory offer that you both agree is what needs to be done right now to progress in the right direction. So a strong introductory offer creates motion without much risk. Focus on the transformation, not features. Includes a clear beginning, middle, and an end. Keep it lightweight but high value. Make sure it leads somewhere meaningful. So what you just described is the perfect example, right? The LinkedIn plus ICP blueprint. That's what you said. That's
Yeah,
what you said.
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Right. So you could frame this as, hey, I know you're starting from scratch. So instead of trying to sell you on all this outreach campaigns and, lead gen, ongoing service, let's focus on where you're at today, which is you need to optimize your profile and we need to define who your ICP is, who your ideal customer profile is. That's it. And do you agree that that would be the step in the right direction? It's hard for them to argue that. So now it's just a matter of, once you get the agreement, pricing it in a way that is easy for you to get the commitment, because now you both agree that that's the right first step. So let's shelve the ongoing services and let's just get the commitment to get to the work. That's kind of the way that a good introductory offer is. So other good examples, obviously what we talked about is the first one, LinkedIn and ICP. That's what I use. That's what you should use. But I've seen people in the SEO space or different consulting gigs do paid audits, right? It's the same idea. In order to help you with your technology, we need to know what current technology you use. We need to look at your data. We need to do prep work to be able to get to a position to make a suggestion for ongoing services. So we're going to send you a paid audit so we could demonstrate trust. Or some type of copywriting sprint. Hey, we're going to go through a messaging and positioning exercise maybe before selling you a massive website, rebuild and coding. We're just going to, hey, let's just rewrite the website copy. And if you like what we do, then we could sell you a website. That's another one that's worked. Or some 30-day launch plan. Let's kind of do some sprint work over these next 30 days to kind of set you up for a campaign. However you want to phrase it, those are examples of compelling introductory offers.
How about this one? You start offer you the compelling introductory offer, low ticket offer, and if you enjoy it, if it goes well, if it works out in the way we plan, then and you decide to shift to an ongoing retainer, then I can credit the cost of the intro offer into your ongoing retainer. Would you say that's business suicide, or is it a good idea?
I mean, I think that if you have a good, compelling offer, anything about ongoing services doesn't need to be discussed, because now it's a conversation for another day. You're trying to do the work for right now. What you just described at the end of it, if you feel like there's hesitancy for them to move forward and you want to offer that in that moment as a compelling reason to get the next commitment, fine. Hey, this is what I charge, but because you did the first part, I'm going to reduce it to try to get the yes. I'm fine with that. To be
Mm.
honest, I think if you do high quality work, you don't need to do that. Your prices are your prices.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of trying to vet people on the commitment to achieve results together. So I
Mm.
don't know. There's no right or wrong answer to that, but I would keep the main thing at the time. You want to pitch the right offer at the right time. So right now, if you're in a compelling introductory offer phase, that's it. Like it's not worth talking about future ongoing services. I've even used those lines with people to say where they've asked maybe about pricing for ongoing services. What is that going to look like? And I'll make a joke and say, look, I guarantee you, I will pitch you that that offer, and you will get all that information. But it's not a conversation for today because we're trying to do this first. So we have to do this. I need to feel like I understand more about your ICP and about your business and about, what your background story is. And then I promise you at the end of that, we'll have that conversation.
Mhm.
It's hard to get people to say no. If you start talking about too many things, it's just taking away from the commitment, right? The micro conversion right now is to get someone to say yes, make a commitment, and pay you.
Yeah. Gotcha. Micro conversions. Never forget those.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about pricing. So again, lots of different ways to do this. There's no right or wrong way. It kind of depends on where you're at in your business, how big your team is. What I like to think about this is more about the value you're providing than necessarily the price. So, you want to price the path, not just the project. So, like what you said, like if you want to start discounting things, you're at least thinking about pricing the path, but you want to just focus on value. When the value is clear, price becomes a non-issue because if you have the right clients who want to solve the problem, you're focusing on the transformation and the problem that you're going to be solving. So like we shouldn't be arguing over the money aspect of it. It's more about solving the problem together. So the way that I think about this is I typically have 3 different types of pricing. One is introductory offers, like we just spoke about. I tie that to one transformation, and try to get an easy yes. And I usually price these at like $750 up to like $1,500. I've done $500, but I find that sometimes that's not really worth my time,
Hmm.
to be really honest. But I've gone up to about $2,000, but $2,500. But at that point, it's because it's a little bit more work. That's why I separated those out. So you have introductory offers that are a little bit more like rinse and repeat, doing one thing, maybe a couple more sessions that I'm just usually charging for my time of, continuing to meet with them to kind of do these introductory offers to kind of gather more insights. Then you have retainers where these are framed around real business impact. Typically, these require more people. So we're really kicking off. These are larger contracts, right? So we're talking 2 to 5K plus a month. And
Yeah,
I'm doing
man,
90-day or 6-month guarantees.
it blows my mind sometimes, Colin, that people would spend this kind of money on LinkedIn. And man, I need to expand how I look at the value of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like 750, yeah, but 2 grand?
But that's because you don't have the right ICPs. You're selling these to businesses. Because the
Yeah.
reason that it justifies that is like because I'm my offer in this world is account management services. We're managing Sales Navigator. We're creating content. I'm giving them staffing, right? Like a virtual assistant. You could think of it like a virtual assistance program for 2 to 5K. So at the alternative is that they could have their assistant do it, who is helping them with business stuff that doesn't really understand LinkedIn, who's a lot more expensive, or they could hire me to staff somebody, work with them to, have deliverables, thought
Mm.
leadership posts, account like prospecting on LinkedIn. That I have like virtual machines. So I have systems set up that they're like licensing as part of this arrangement. Now, obviously, I understand that you might look at that and say, wow, I can't believe people pay that. But when I show them the amount of systems I have set up and the results that we can get based off the fact that I've assembled a team, again, it's about value, not price. It's like, well, a lot of people are like, oh, I would like somebody else to basically do all this work with me. And then it all of a sudden becomes, for that value, a pretty good deal to say, well, this would cost me for the next 6 months $30,000. That is worth an investment to see if, based off the business, we drive more leads and if we build up more connections, right? It's like a value-based pricing. The reality is the reason that you look at it is because you're thinking about just yourself, which I get. I was there too, right? The introductory offer is you're selling your time. For retainers, I'm not selling my time. I'm selling my team's time. I'm selling an operations.
That's what I need to change. working with my cousin Kayla, I'm kind of getting a little bit of taste of that. I'm like, oh, this could work. I actually like this. I'm not freaking out because she's good. I trust her.
That's the key. They're licensing your team and they're licensing the stress to make sure that you stay consistent, that you have deliverables, you hit the deliverables, that you care about the numbers, that you're opening up serious conversations, that you're working internally with their team to, make sure that you're doing data management. That's why it costs a lot, but you're good and you can guarantee that you're delivering results. That's a real business. Now, obviously there's value ladders here. So if you're not there, that's fine, but that's where you want to get to if you want to do account management services. Now, the other thing that I did in my business was service contracts. I'll build you a website. I'll build you a landing page. We'll build you an AI agent to help you, reduce the friction associated with specific business use cases, creating carousels, or writing. We could build an AI agent, and because of that, it's priced higher because it's more work, and I might need to work with somebody else to do it than an intro offer. It's not just me, so it's a higher price, but we'll get you X by Y. We'll do this in 30 days. We'll do this in 60 days. I'll build you an e-commerce website off Shopify, configure it. I'll build the whole thing and I'll charge you $10,000 to $15,000, but I'll make sure that I'll have it done in like 60 days.
60 days, yeah.
That is a service contract. You see the difference? So there's different ways to kind of price based off of the value that you're doing. Intro is the smallest, service contracts higher, but like harder to accomplish, and also being judged based off how good you are. And then retainers is, I have an operations and you're licensing my team. I have a compelling offer that will help you stand out in the market and will join your team. We'll join forces, but you got to have the right capabilities to deliver upon that to justify the price.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. All
cool. All right. So now that we kind of talked about that, the next thing that I want to talk about is the structure. So we think about this like the agenda. How do you go into the call and maintain frame? This is what you had said at the beginning, where you're like, well, I'll just go in and kind of rehash a lot of the conversation that we had in the discovery call. We'll see what happens. And we'll kind of do a working session.
Mm-hmm.
That's that. I'm just saying that, it's going to be hard to get the commitment when you're so open-ended like that. You got to have like a structure. You got to be more organized. So this is the typical structure. And obviously there's different ways to do this. I'm not saying that you have to follow this way, but this is the way that I think about this. It's important to start from the framing. You're not selling the whole thing, just the right first step. And so you're coming in with an opinion on what you think the first right step is. So, you're not changing your mind theoretically. I mean, obviously you're open to being adaptable based off the feedback, but if you've done good diagnostics, you understand your business, you understand what you're capable of, it's realistically not going to change. So for the first 3 to 5 minutes when somebody comes on the call, I'm trying to anchor the conversation. You might exchange some pleasantries, but I'm really trying to anchor the conversation. And the way that I do that is I recap the past discussion, right? I'm demonstrating my ability to align based off of what I think the status quo is, right? Summarize, this is what we spoke about. This is what I see on your profile. This is what we spoke about that you confirmed. I think this is the pain that you're experiencing. And this is what we talked about wanting to solve. Is that right? Right? You're recapping the past conversation to be able to align on the status quo. That's really important because it not only creates this initial alignment, but it demonstrates that you were active listening. Because remember, they don't know whether or not you were actually listening to them in the first place on the discovery call. You might have asked a lot of good questions and then not listened to any of the answers. So this is your opportunity to show that, you're caught up. and then get the yes. Does that sound like we're on the same page here?
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So then I always like to kind of surface any lingering thoughts to just be able to do a double check, because also you might have sent them resources. You might, you're kind of wanting to hear, you just recapped everything, but maybe there's data that you're missing. Maybe they had a conversation with somebody that they want to share, right? You want to open up the floor to check if anything has changed. Did you check out those resources that I sent you? What are your thoughts coming out of our last meeting? Now that we're aligned, now that you demonstrated that you are on the same page, give them the floor for a few minutes to see, where your head's at. Like, is there anything else that I need to know before I just start telling you what I think in detail? And hear them out. Chances are you could also start seeing, like, are they positive? Are they negative? Are they neutral? You could kind of start thinking, are your objections that you think are going to be coming, was that right? You can start gathering more data by just giving them the floor to voice their opinion. But let's say, no, I feel pretty good. I'm curious to see what you have for me today, right? That might be a typical response. Cool. So the next thing is you want to start getting into the precursor for the pitch. And the way that you want to frame this is you want to frame the transformation. So you want to start painting the before and after picture. So once you've anchored the conversation and they agreed with you, now you want to start you don't want to talk about the features of your business. You want to frame the transformation. So examples of this would be, now that we both agree that business seems to be doing well, but you're interested in getting more results on LinkedIn. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So, right now it seems like you're spending no time on LinkedIn. You're getting no results. You don't post. You don't do it. You're positioning.
Comment.
Right. So we both agree that if you don't do anything, then it's probably going to stay the same. Is that right? Yes. Okay. But now imagine if we could be consistent Monday through Friday. We're going to optimize your profile. We're going to go through your ICP, and we're going to start reaching out to them consistently. And we're going to open up conversations and try to get you on more calls, or take those leads and drive that to your sales team. Do you believe that if we were able to create that type of activity, you would be able to close more deals? Right? It's the before and the after. You're framing the problem and solution. Not talking about what you're going to do. You just want to make sure that they agree that it's possible to change the status quo. You've agreed on the problem, and now you have a before and after transformation that you're verbalizing and getting them to buy in, that there's a possibility of a solution. If you can get them to agree with that, now all of a sudden, let's lay out my roadmap. This is how now that we all agree that you want to do this, we think it's possible. Here's how I think we can move forward. And then you want to present your offer and roadmap. And again, this is, you go in sincerely what you think is the best step forward. Introductory offer, retainers, there's no right or wrong answer. You're just laying out what's next. And you're talking that, and then you invite the response. When you've presented your offer, give them the floor and then just shut up and say, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
They will, you can say, like, how does that sound to you? What do you think? They might start asking about pricing. But the way I always see it is, in my experience, pricing used to be an objection when I didn't have a clear offer, where it was unclear what we were doing. But if you lay this out very clearly, pricing is usually not the objection, because if you have an introductory offer, it's usually I always like to think.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Yeah, it's low. It's actually like shockingly low from what they thought I was going to present. They're usually like excited, which is what I'm trying to purposely get. I feel like what we're doing is not only fair, but like, I'm excited to book the next meeting, get the yes, and say, okay, let's get started, trying to get the commitment. Obviously, if you're pitching the retainers, there might be more objection and might be more conversations, because obviously it's a higher commitment. But if they've agreed with the whole framing of what they're doing, the objections are typically more about technical deliverables or something. Like it's getting into the weeds of like the contract at that point. Like
Yeah.
you present it in a way where now you're just fleshing out some of the details that makes it kind of easy to give them the floor to make sure that they understand everything and feel comfortable about it and like where they're at. What do you think about this? The call structure.
Oh my gosh, this is more good stuff. You came with the LinkedIn networking funnel. That was good stuff. You came with spin selling. That's really good. This is also. Is this an acronym by any chance? ASFP. ASP. Like some
No,
nice way of remembering this, but
we could
this is
probably
good,
create
man.
one, but no, it's not. It's more of just kind of a traditional flow of like how I'm approaching like the meeting. Because especially like in this meeting, I view the strategy session as my time to shine. Like this is where I am the entrepreneur. Like you are in my domain now, and I'm trying to like bring the energy of like the other discovery call. I'm showing up to give you the floor, active listening, and see whether or not I want to get into this meeting. But in this meeting, this is my floor. I'm in control. You're here because I asked you to be here, and I'm here to serve. So I feel like I am trying the best I can to flow this through to get the commitment out of you and really try to close you. Like that's the goal. I'm trying to close a deal here. So there's a flow associated with how to do that.
And are you doing this out of your head, or do you have this on paper? I'm thinking about having a Google Doc. Maybe renaming some of these phases and giving them a more innocent name, or spot on the agenda in the meeting in Google Docs. But is this something that you're doing in your head?
I'm doing this mostly in my head. And the reason I do it is because I'm trying to flow them through a process. I'm not trying to be overly rigid. That's, I want it to feel organic. So, I'm starting the meeting by anchoring the conversation, trying to get them to say yes, yes, yes a little bit. I want to give them the floor to make sure I'm not missing anything before I get into my good stuff. Because, if they say, because I've actually made that mistake too, where it's like I get right into kind of like my offer. And then when they speak, they've said something that I wish I knew before I said what I said. Maybe they spoke with their partner and they're not ready to move forward. Like it's just it was like something that was like I kind of missed it because I didn't let them talk, and I was like so trying to get through it. So I really try to keep it conversational. That's why I'm doing it in my head, where it's like I want to give them the floor and just pause for a moment and say like, well, how are you feeling after that last meeting? And then hear what they say. And then it's almost giving me permission to like come in with what I got because they're hoping that I'm prepared. I am prepared. I'm usually also not necessarily sharing screens. Like, I mean, sometimes when it comes to presenting the offer and roadmap, typically, especially on the retainer side, they want me to share my screen. They ask me questions. Can I see what you mean? So I'll be showing them the virtual machines. I'll be showing them my software databases, just so they can visualize that I have a process. Like I'm not talking, I'm not making this up. So, and once they see that, I have found that like I've, crossed the threshold of like, okay, I know what I'm talking about. They're not typically then they want to give me the benefit of the doubt that I can do what I'm saying. It's more about asking me, to be honest, like, do you have this written down? Like, can we go through the contract phase? That's, and again, introductory offers are a lot easier because you don't have contract phases. It's usually like, I'm trying to avoid that type of stuff with the introductory offer or even the service contract. Sometimes they want it written down, which is fine, but it's a little bit more easy to understand. So, for example, like if somebody wants a website or like an e-commerce store, I sometimes want to just present what the whole thing is because I don't want to give them an introductory offer, mostly because I want them to understand what it costs. You understand? It's like, because if you're going to ask me to build like a whole Shopify site that is configured well with a front end website that's manageable in the back end, like I'm a little nervous to then say, well, let me just do all the copy. And you can't afford or you don't want to spend the amount of money that it's really going to cost to build something of substance. So I
Yeah.
present the whole service contract. And then we can do milestones, right? So you don't have to, like what you said, I'm fine with like first, like milestone payments. You know, we'll do all the copy and design first done before I get to the technical stuff. So you could sign off on that and then we'll move forward. But that's what I mean, like a service contract. And that's a little bit more of like the details that they might want to get into at the end of the call. Or even in another call. Like, but I'm usually trying to get it done in the call, just to kind of vet to see how they feel.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
let's you know, it's important that you kind of just keep in mind in the strategy call that the whole thing is to move toward commitment and progression. So, you know, you present your roadmap as the obvious next step. If you can get buy-in, I like to say, this is kind of what I was just saying. You want to use a soft close for blueprints or reviews. So like, you know, in retainers and service contracts, you might like, they might need to think about it. I don't like to, I'm not trying to pressure people. I just presented my roadmap and what I offer. So I like to say soft closes at that point. I'm not putting a hard pressure on them, but, you know, depending on what they say, it's like, well, we need time to think about it. I like to like do a soft close to say, well, like, when do you anticipate having an answer? Do you want to get on another call? Like, or, you know, can we schedule that now? Just so we have another check-in. So we can, I call that a soft close. Like it's still commitment. It might not be a yes, but like we're progressing toward making a decision. Understanding that you might need to process this. They might say, I like what we're doing. I think we want to do it, but I just would prefer for you to maybe write all this down if you could send it to me, and then maybe we could set up another call to go over it. No problem. That's like a soft close.
So that's discovery call number 2. Third meeting, second discovery call. Or is it now no longer a discovery call?
It's definitely not a discovery call. It's a closed call. Like it's not a strategy session because I've already presented the offer. It's like, you know, handling objections. It's like a closed call. You know, to be honest, that's also why I like introductory offers and service contracts, because it allows us more room to build trust. Then it's like less pressure. It's like, well, we might have another 30 days of work to kind of go through this. It's just every business is a little bit different because, like, for example, certain audits might require a lot more work that, you know, you might need a more firm close for paid sprints or offers. Like if certain things take time, like you can't fall into the situation that you described. Like you know, live and learn. I'm not going to do this unless we have it a contract and a payment. Like it's just, that's a firm close. Like I'm like, no.
So you believe in collecting payment before you start work?
Yeah, I do. Now we can milestone it out for milestone payments, but I need an upfront payment. So like if I would even, for an introductory offer, if I do $1,500, I want $750 before I get started.
Yeah. Deposit. Okay.
Yeah. So you pay $7. So I'll write something down. I usually have like a template, you know, I don't need them to sign it, because if they pay that, you know, in lieu of signing the contract, you know, you accept payment. And then once it's delivered, I want the second payment. And the second payment is, those payments help me determine if I want to work with them for the long run. Did they pay? Did they like the work? Like how did they feel about that? Again, the idea here is let's knock the first piece out. If that's when we'll map out what comes next. So I'm not trying to like overdo it in this conversation. It's like, let's get the commitment. Let's go through the payment process. Let's like see how serious this is.
Yeah, micro conversions on the way.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So final thoughts here. Guide, don't push. You know, the way that I view this is my role in this process as the entrepreneur is that I'm the servant warrior. Like I'm like here to serve as your guide and hopefully, you know, make this entertaining, enjoyable. I'm also opening up my network and resources to be able to service you. So for me, strategy call isn't it's not a sales trap. It's like alignment tool. It's a matter of like making sure that we're on the same page. So I want to lead with clarity, not urgency, and I want to pitch the next logical step to demonstrate that I am aligned with what they want and I am the shepherd that's going to get them there. I'm not going to we're not going to climb the whole mountain today, but we're going to get them to the next summit to make sure that they feel comfortable with the elevation, and then we'll reassess how they feel about continuing to climb. And if not, there's no hard feelings. We could just go our separate ways. You don't earn a commitment. You kind of guide towards it, and then let them commit if they want to.
Okay. All right. Cool. So for anybody out there who's just pitching from the get go, just going in ready to pitch, drop their offer, drop deals, ask for retainers, ask for contracts in the first 15 minutes of the intro call or even in the discovery call, we need to take a step back, lean back a little, and ask, what's the micro conversion? All right. And we need to guide people towards understanding enough to make a decision, not to necessarily buy on the spot. All right. So this is good stuff. This has been really eye-opening, Colin. And I'm like, it shouldn't have taken me 6 months to realize what I need to do with my business. I need a team. I need a team to do this LinkedIn marketing, especially editors of content, and then contract my team to provide said services to
Yep.
this. Yeah. This has been quite insightful.
It also the model of what you just described is the differentiating factor, right? That's how you charge that much money to businesses, because they view, whenever I would show them what the systems I have set up, the processes that we follow, the standard operating procedures, as you would call it, it puts them on notice that Pursue Networking and me are unique in the marketplace, which is what we all as service providers want to be able to demonstrate, right? Not everybody can deliver the results that I can. I'm not saying nobody can and it's impossible. I'm just saying that I'm good at what I do. And because of that, there's a justification on why it costs what it costs. But I can guarantee you results, not because I am some magical sorcerer, but because I literally have a team that I'm like employing, and the systems to kind of give them access to it to be consistent at it. So it's like, you could be consistent at it. You could have your assistant or hire somebody to be consistent at it. Neither of you want to do that. Or you could pay me to have my team be consistent at it. And you will notice that once you pay me, we will be consistent at it. And we will be flexible to be able to do it to your liking. And not everybody has that capability, but I do. So
yeah,
is this something that you want to invest in? And also you could blend out services, right? Because I would also even say, hey, we'll also maybe help with virtual assistants, right? So that might be like managing Instagram, like posting to different channels, working internally, maybe with like taking the data and giving it to your sales team. I would potentially help with copywriting as like a secondary. If you have a press release, I'm happy to see it. Like, I'm joining the team. It's like a consultancy virtual assistants. That's the name of the game. You want to distinguish yourself in the market and try to go premium and get better clients.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sounds like a sound strategy. All right. Let's talk more about that when I'm in Atlanta.
We will. I'm looking forward to that. And let's keep in touch. And we're almost kind of coming up to the end of the curriculum. I do think that it's probably worth time maybe talking about handling objections for one session, and then we could kind of dive into the Pursue Networking software and show everybody what we built and how we kind of keep track of organizing the data and the tools that we use to be more effective at this.
Yeah, sounds good. Real
Cool, man.
crispy.
All right, well, talk to the same time next week.
All right, see ya.